This is episode number 209. I'm talking about books, how to make sure your book sells. Plus, I've got a quick and dirty outline how you can have a book done in 2 months or less. That's coming up.
This is the Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Rise above the noise. Expand your audience. Deliver impact. Here's your host, David Hooper.
This is probably the worst way to introduce this episode, especially considering the topic, how to write a book that sells. I want to give you an update on my latest book. It's a book about how to market yourself via podcasting. A few months ago, I finished the initial manuscript after months of writing 137,500 words, passed it to the editor. I'm very excited. We'd been over the outline, been working with her throughout the process, and here's what she said about it.
It's just a big jumbled mess.
Not quite the book that I thought I had, but that's the process of writing. I'm finishing it up now, 137,500 words, way too long for you to read. You're very busy. You got things to do. I'm tightening up the message. I found ways to get the same amount of value for you in fewer words. That is coming soon. When exactly? I'm not sure. If you want updates to make sure that you don't miss this book, redpodcast.com is the way to do that. Go subscribe to Red Podcast there, whether you're listening on an iPhone, Android, your computer, any type of device that you get a podcast on, I can get you subscribed at redpodcast.com. Writing a book is a bitch. No two ways about it. This is about my 11th book. And part of the reason that I don't know how many books I've actually done as an author is because I've worked on dozens of book projects, well over 100. And even knowing what I know about the process, even having been through it before several dozen times, this stuff still happens. Is it complicated? Yeah, it can be. But sometimes we make it more complicated than it needs to be. On this episode, I'm going to attempt to demystify the book writing process. The first thing I'm going to talk about is coming up with a book that will sell. The second part of the process, a quick and dirty outline. If you don't know where to start, you think, man, I've got no idea how I could organize a long book. I can barely organize a blog post. Well, I'm going to show you how to do it quickly and easily. This is the Red Podcast, the podcast for influencers. If you're a blogger, a podcaster, speaker, marketer, nonfiction author, or entrepreneur, basically you're a person with a message that you want to spread and you want to make people care about that message, this is the podcast for you. Red Podcast shows you how to do just that. Take your message and effectively spread it. How? The main way is by making a name for yourself. That's what we focus on, how to influence people. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you how to make money while doing this. Here's what I talk about. Book publishing, podcasting, speaking, and other marketing elements of your business that you must master to grow and engage your audience. That's what RED stands for. Reach, expand, and develop your audience. One of the really great things about books these days is that a lot of them are sold digitally, meaning just ones and zeros, going from one computer to a Kindle device or other type of e-reader device. I was cleaning up my office last week, getting everything organized. I found a box in my closet, thought it was one thing, opened it up just to verify. About 25 copies of my last book. This is a book written for musicians. It still sells well. I'm no longer actively promoting, but it is still available. So now I've got 25 books that I'm not actively doing anything with. But that's money on the table, isn't it? Yeah. So how am I going to unload those books? Using FreshBooks. Put out a post on Facebook. Let people know these books are available. If somebody wants one, send them an invoice via FreshBooks. FreshBooks is a super intuitive tool that makes creating and sending invoices easy. Using FreshBooks, it takes about 30 seconds to create and send an invoice. If somebody wants one of these books, they email me their address that they want it shipped to. Before I ship it, send them a FreshBooks invoice. They can pay right there on the invoice. One click is all it takes. They type in their credit card number. The money goes straight into my bank account. You can do something similar, whether you're charging by the hour, doing consulting, doing coaching, selling off books, or selling whatever you've got. FreshBooks makes it easy. Right now, they're offering a free month of unrestricted access to all Red Podcast listeners. Totally free right now. You don't even need a credit card for the trial. To claim your free month, go to freshbooks.com/red and enter RED in the How Did You Hear About Us section. So let's talk about books. Very sexy books. Probably follow a lot of people on Facebook. You're on a lot of mailing lists. It seems like everybody's got a book. See these big launches, jump them up to the top of the Amazon charts, then they just fall. And even with that kind of promotion, the truth is that most nonfiction business books, they sell fewer than 5,000 copies. Now, 5,000 copies, in fairness, that's a lot of books to sell. But if you do things right, it is completely doable. Over the course of my career, I've sold tens of thousands of books. It is absolutely possible. So let's talk about how to do it. Let's talk about your competitive advantage. Do you really need one? If you listen to a lot of business coaches, they're going to talk to you about a USP, your unique selling proposition. Do you really need one, though? Do you need one for the book that you want to do? How about one of the biggest companies in the world, McDonald's? Do they have a competitive advantage? Listen to this from 1975.
2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
Say that again.
2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, onions, pickles, onions on a
McDonald's Big Mac, the big sandwich with the great big taste that everybody's talking about.
That was from 1975, 40 years ago. Here's one from 1984.
2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese.
Still going. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. They use this ad in England.
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
They use this ad in Australia.
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun.
They have used this ad all around the world for decades. 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Everybody knows that the special sauce is just Thousand Island dressing. Nothing special about it. It's not a secret. If you go to Burger King, what do you think they give you? You order a Whopper. What is that? 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. The same thing. It's flame broiled, not fried, but that's not a huge competitive advantage. So how are McDonald's and Burger King 2 of the largest restaurant chains in the world? Is it because they have the best food? Absolutely not. Is it because they have the cheapest food? No, it's not the cheapest. It's convenient. If you want to eat out, it's pretty cheap. But if you really needed cheap food, no way is that the cheapest. Is it because they advertise everywhere? Maybe. There's a lot of places that are super successful and actually make more money that don't advertise nearly as much as these 2 companies, though. So what would you do if you could pick any competitive advantage to compete against McDonald's or Burger King? Is it a bigger advertising budget? No. Is it cheaper food? No. Is it better food? No. The one competitive advantage that will completely annihilate McDonald's and Burger King, if you could have it and they couldn't have it, hungry customers. Hungry customers. That advantage will always dominate cheap, fast, good. All you need is hungry customers. So let's talk about how to do that with your book. First of all, let me say this. You do what you do. I'm not looking to change that. You do you. But can you do it in a way that takes advantage of hungry customers? If you want to sell books, you have to talk to people in a way that they'll respond to. Here are the ways that I suggest doing that. And this is exactly what I do. My last book, Six Figure Musician, I've been in the music business for 20 years. I didn't need to talk to customers one-on-one to find out what they wanted, but I did. That's the first thing you should do. Get on the phone and start having one-on-one conversations. Go to events and start having one-on-one conversations. You might not need to. I certainly didn't, but it helps. You want to be the guy who really understands his audience, that guy with his feet on the ground. You want to be that musician who's super cool, coming out of seemingly nowhere that everybody connects to, where it's a movement. Nirvana, great example. What happened when those guys came out? Bam! Flipped music on its head. That music was what was happening on the street. Now, would that have happened? They're all millionaires in heated pools and not in touch. Probably not. You lose touch. If you don't keep changing with your fans, they move on, you start getting desperate. And that's when we see people start phoning it in. It's not just musicians, it's book authors, it's movie makers. You come out with something that really connects with an audience. Then you lose them. I don't want you to do that with your book. I want you to really get connected with your audience. How do you do that? Again, one-on-one conversations. Get on the phone. Book some consultations. Go to events. Talk with people. Have those conversations. Even if you know your audience, this is beneficial. That's how to have longevity. This is how to have a long career. This is how to have a best-selling book. Talk to people in a way that they'll respond. Use their language. They've got a need, you fill it. This is something I call the Fantastic Four. In general, these are the things that sell. So if you're thinking about coming out with a book, one of these topics is what you want to focus on. Number 1, success. How can you make more money? How can you get more dates? How can you live in a bigger house? How can you drive a nicer car? Whatever success is to your audience, number 1 topic that's going to sell. Number 2, security. Think of Maslow's hierarchy. A lot of these overlap. If you're trying to help somebody make more money, be more successful in business, instead of approaching it from a success standpoint, approach it from a security standpoint. This will make sure that you do not fail. Carrot, stick. One gets them to something good. The other keeps them from going somewhere that they don't want to go. Third nonfiction topic that sells, sex. So let's take it back to a money-making book. Hey, you get more women if you got more money. The more money you make, the more attractive you are to women. That's your approach. So sex. And a related one, the 4th topic, status. It's not just the women that are going to find you attractive. The men will want to be you. Your parents will look up to you. You'll finally prove them wrong. You were going to be successful after all. You've got status. You've got the car. You've got the house. You've got the wife. Status, being looked up to. So the 4 things that sell when it comes to nonfiction: success, security, sex, status. Again, I'm not trying to change your business. You do you. But if you can pitch what you're doing in one of those ways, you're going to sell more books. It wraps up everything you're doing in this nice package. And to really go for the jugular, solve a problem. Remember a few years ago, BP? Oil spill. Can't find a way to stop it. Leaking and leaking and leaking. The leak cam on the internet. Millions of gallons of oil going into the ocean. It's a problem, right? They knew that there was a potential for this to happen. Everybody knew there were problems with the pipeline. Why didn't they do anything about it? The reason they didn't do anything about it is the same reason a lot of books don't sell. And that's because we think about prevention. People don't want to think about prevention. People want a solution. And when you've got a solution, think about BP. You've got an oil leak. If you had offered them a solution, they would have done anything for it. That's what I talk about when I'm talking about hungry customers. They would do anything. So when you're doing your book, I want you to think that. I want the angle to be not prevention, because people don't want prevention. They want a solution for a problem that they already have. Lack of success, lack of security, lack of sex, lack of status. If you get a title that really drills into that, That's going to help you sell more books. Let's talk about the content. Here's an easy way for you to remember it. BP, the company that was leaking oil, that's what you want to focus on. BP, big problem. Solve it. And here's how you're going to do it. Here's the quick and dirty outline for your book. 2 months, you can have a book. Here's how to do it. First of all, you got to know your customers, know their problems. I talked about this, one-on-one conversations. SurveyMonkey. If you got an email list, send them a SurveyMonkey. Get to know their problems. Read through their problems. Call them back if you need to. Get a phone number. Have these one-on-one conversations. Get to know the language that they're using. My suggestion is you talk to 100 people. You will hear patterns. 10 people, 20 people, 30, 40, 50 people. When they start talking about the same thing, you know that there is a problem that needs to be solved there. Taking that problem, come up with 10 big ideas that surround it. Could be 10 steps for solving the problem. It could be 10 sub-problems. If you've got this problem, here's some other problems you may be experiencing, and here's how to solve those problems. 10 strategies you can implement to solve the problem and get where you want to go. 10 big ideas. That's what you're looking for. Let's say you want to show people how to make money online. What's one big problem they might have? No mailing list. All right. Well, let's talk about the 10 issues why they don't have that mailing list that they want. Then you talk about how to solve them. Each of those 10 big ideas surrounding the problem, you come up with 5 subtopics for each idea. And for each of those subtopics, 4 pages. So here's how the math works out. 10 problems times 5 subtopics, that's 50 items. 50 items, 4 pages per item, 200 pages. 4 pages per day, it's a 50-day book. 2 months, you've got your book. Now, that's the heavy lifting. It might take you a little bit more than 2 months. It might take you a little time for editing. Maybe you're like me. Editor says,
It's just a big jumbled mess.
That's going to take a little bit longer. But 50 pages for the heavy lifting, pretty good. Gives you a start point. It gives you an end point. Let me go through this again. You got your one big problem. You've got 10 big ideas surrounding that problem. Got 5 subtopics for each of those 10 big ideas. 4 pages per subtopic. That's 50 items. 10 problems times 50 subtopics. 50 items, 4 pages per item. It's a 200-page book. Easy. Easy. 2 months and you're done with the heavy lifting. If you got questions or comments, reach out to me at David Hooper on Twitter. I'm happy to work you through the process. Hey, speaking of Twitter, got a lot of feedback on my last episode. If you haven't heard it, redpodcast.com/208. I went to Damon John's Launch Academy. Kind of a pitch fest. They were pitching hard. $4,000 sale from the stage, eventually dropping the price to $2,000. Got a lot of feedback on this. People were pissed.
Next, on a very special episode of Red Podcast. An entrepreneur on a mission.
Damon Johns from Shark Tank is having a special event down here, so we came downtown to see what it's about.
A bad decision.
All right, y'all, we're going inside the hotel right now.
Dreams are shattered.
We get upstairs and find out Damien is not even here.
Words are exchanged.
I want the information from him, not from somebody else.
Bridges are burned.
That's a scam. It's a scam, and she don't get my $15 bet when we go across the street.
Some wounds will never heal. Next, on a very special episode of Red Podcast.
Got some feedback, more comments about the Damon John Launch Academy coming next. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into this topic and some stuff that you need to know, because what happened, other than a licensing deal for his name and image, he's got nothing to do with his company, and you are going to have the same opportunity. As you grow and grow your influence, you're going to have that exact same opportunity. It happens all the time. Is it a good idea? Sometimes. I'm going to talk more about that on the next episode. Go to redpodcast.com to subscribe. Make sure you never miss an episode. Redpodcast.com. You go there. One click is all it takes. iPhone, Android, however you get your podcast, one click will make sure that new episodes of Red Podcast are delivered directly to you. Thank you so much for listening. If you have questions, comments, got that book idea, want to run it by me, Twitter is the best way to get me. At David Hooper on Twitter. Happy to answer any questions or comments that you've got. Thank you so much for listening to Red Podcast, and I'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Never miss an episode. Subscribe now with your iPhone, Android, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.